I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Central African Republic to introduce an address by the head of state.
Mr. Vice President of the General Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, it is a great honor for me to introduce the recorded statement by His Excellency Mr. Faustin Archange Touadera, Head of State and President of the Central African Republic, at the general debate of the 75th session of the General Assembly. Mr. President of the 75th regular session of the General Assembly of the United Nations, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of state and government, Mr. Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Even virtually, it is once again a great honor for me to take the floor in our august assembly on behalf of the Central African Republic at the 75th regular session of the General Assembly of the United Nations. I would like to address to you, Mr. President Volkan Bozkır, my sincere warm congratulations on your brilliant election to be the President of the 75th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations. Your election is symbolic of a great honor and a tribute paid to all continents, and in particular to your country, the Republic of Turkey. Your extensive knowledge of of international relations, as well as your own personal qualities, are without a doubt a great advantage and a guarantee for the success of our work. I would also like to commend the excellent work done and the results obtained by Professor Tijani Mohamed Ban during the 74th session of the General Assembly. I would like to express our gratitude to him for his work and our satisfaction. Mr. President, from this tribune, I would like to take this opportunity to express, on behalf of the people and government of the Central African Republic, our gratitude for the caring attention shown to my country, the Central African Republic, by the international community, in spite of your numerous commitments and demands made upon you. I would like to reiterate our wholehearted gratitude and wholehearted trust to Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General, for his continued commitment to peace and development throughout the world, and especially for his constant and multifaceted support of my country, the Central African Republic. Mr. President, this 75th session is taking place in a very particular circumstances where the entire world is having to face this terrible pandemic of COVID-19, which has led to a great loss of life throughout the world. We would like to bow our heads in memory of all those who have succumbed to this pandemic throughout the world, that humankind must combat on a daily basis and must join its efforts to combat. Now, since the onset of this sanitary crisis, the Central African Republic has not been spared like other countries. The assessment of the socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic indicates that economic growth in my country will drop by somewhere between 0.8 to 1.2%. I would therefore like to urge the entire international community to invest greater resources in finding common solutions to eradicate this sanitary crisis. Mr. President, humankind is confronted with numerous challenges: security challenge, environmental, climate challenge, the challenge of human mobility, human rights, terrorism, denuclearization, dismantlement of weapons of mass destruction, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, in light of all these challenges, the choice of the theme of this year, wit, the future we want, the United Nations we need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. That theme reminds us that multilateralism has always been and remains the best instrument to combat effectively against certain scourges and the best means to minimize certain antagonisms on the international stage. Now, at the 75th anniversary, it's essential to keep in mind the goals and principles that have guided our organization as contained in our charter. And I would like to just mention them: preventing and eliminating threats to peace, developing friendly relations between nations, combating against inequalities and all forms of discrimination, protecting human rights. Now, this session is also an opportunity for us to think about the way in which our common organization must confront the new challenges that are affecting the world and our societies. Today, more than ever, we must, in spite of our differences, promote international cooperation and dialogue by pooling our efforts to work for a better future for humankind. The United Nations organization remains, for us, the ideal framework and forum for multilateralism. Mr. President, no human creation is perfect, and it is a good idea to take stock of some of the weaknesses that we have seen over the past 75 years in the existence of our organization, and to try to find effective solutions and lasting solutions. And on this point, the Central African Republic would like to join its voice to those of a number of states and the African Union to request or to support the reform of the Security Council. What's necessary is to transcend narrow interests and to give preference to common interests in order to avoid confrontations as part of a common strategy for our world that is facing great transformations and changes. It's also important for Africa to be better represented in the various organs of our organization, in particular within the Security Council, which is the main decision-making body. Through multilateralism, we can ensure that we have a more secure and stable future. Humankind merely aspires to peace, to justice, and to sustainable development, and we can ensure that that is achieved. Mr. President, taking this opportunity that I have before me, I would also like to share with you a few words about the situation in my country, where, thanks to the common efforts of the international community and under the auspices of the African Union, a political agreement on peace and reconciliation was signed between the Central African government and 14 armed groups. This was on the 6th of February 2019. Now, since the signature of that agreement, the Central African government, as well as the guarantors and facilitators of the agreement, have spared no effort to implement and uphold the engagements contained in that agreement. Furthermore, the government, as part of the security sector reform, has made significant progress, and this will facilitate the progressive redeployment of the defense and security forces, as well as the continuation of the national DDRR program, which was already launched as a prelude to the upcoming elections planned for the period 2020-2021. Now, in spite of the good faith of the government and its intention to uphold the commitments contained in the political agreement, massive violations of international humanitarian law and of human rights continue to be perpetrated against civilians by certain armed groups that are signatories of the aforementioned agreement. And they continue to rearm themselves through illegal means, thus undermining the peace process and the process of national reconciliation, which is the only guarantee of social unity and cohesion. Mr. President, in spite of the significant progress achieved in implementing the security sector reform in the Central African Republic, many challenges remain. Now, among these challenges are the real engagement by armed groups to join the DDRR process and to join the special mixed security units. Second, lasting support by the international community in implementing the peace and reconciliation agreement. Conducting operations on the ground as well as operational deployment. Mobilizing national resources as well as international resources with the help of our development partners. Mr. President, in order to comply with the constitutional time frame, the National Elections Authority is trying, in spite of, or was working in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, to make sure that elections are held based on the established timetable. To date, operations to conduct a census as well as to draw up lists of voters are continuing outside of the country, and they will be immediately followed by the publication of electoral lists, which is an essential condition for convening voters for the first round of elections. The government is working in close cooperation with the organizational staff of the project entitled Support to the Electoral Process in Central African Republic, PAPEC, which is designed has been designed based on key coordination mechanisms. Mr. President, the government, with the support of MINUSCA, continues to make progress in restoring the authority of the state on the entire national territory. This involves redeployment of defense and security forces and state services, without, of course, forgetting the reestablishment of basic social services. Today, the Central African Army is moving to regaining its operational capacities, and I can assure you that I'm determined to create the conditions for rebuilding the Central African Republic in order to give our people trust in the future and a sense of well-being. And for this purpose, I would like to reiterate the appeal of the Central African people to the Security Council to fully lift the embargo on the arms embargo. The weight of that embargo limits our national army in fulfilling its role as a national defense force and to bolster the authority of the state and guarantee the integrity of our national territory. Mr. President, before concluding my statement, I would like to recall that my country continues with its efforts in implementing the plan for recovery and rebuilding, and this plan is regularly assessed together with our partners. There's no doubt that tangible progress has been made. However, much remains to be done. For this, we are committed to preserving and consolidating what we've already achieved, remedying our weaknesses, and continuing to make progress in striving to achieve peace and economic recovery. The task ahead of us is immense, and as so well expressed in an old saying, a bird can only take flight when it is held up by the air. So I would like to express the hope that the international community will continue to be mobilized in this momentum of international solidarity to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people and government of the Central African Republic in order to help our country get back on its feet. I would like to express every a hope of success for our work. Long live multilateralism, long live international solidarity and cooperation. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the Head of State of the Central African Republic for the statement just made. I now give the floor to